Welcome to the Bold Book of the Day with Dr. Denise Nicholson, a show that is a central hub and safe space for authors to share their stories. The Bold Book with Dr. Denise begins now.
Good morning. Welcome to Bold Book of the Day. My name is Dr. Denise Nicholson, and this podcast is for anyone looking for inspiration. Today, we have the author Amy Pollack. She is here to tell us about her series, an amazing series for young people. But first, Amy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Denise.
It's such
Glad
a
to be
pleasure
here.
to have you.
Thank you.
Now, tell me a little bit about yourself before we delve into your book.
So I started my books, The Adventures of Jelly Bean and The Further Adventures of Jelly Bean. Actually, it all began when I was in fourth grade. My books are about a forthright fourth grader, and my teacher used to call me up to the front of the class back in those days, 60 years ago, and I would tell these stories off the top of my head about a little mischievous fourth grader named Jelly Bean. And people I went to fourth grade with, which was that long ago, still remember my stories, which was kind of funny to me, but I guess they were memorable. And it was just one thing that I was pretty decent at, making up stories. And so she would do that, and the kids in my class would look forward to it. And I resumed it. So let's see. So I was in school, then I was in college, then I was in graduate school. And I would go back to my, doing a million other things, because then I got married and had 3 children and was raising kids. And then, I was working and teaching for quite a number of years. First elementary school, then middle school, then high school, then college, which I liked the best.
Mhm.
And I would keep up here and there sporadically with my book, but nothing ever got finished. And COVID, the pandemic, which was so awful, had my silver lining was there, because, when we were stuck home and I got so tired of my children, and by that point I had 6 grandchildren, but I got tired, finish that thought, of my children saying, "Mom, are you ever going to finish that?" So I kind of had to. And plus, as I said, I was stuck home, as we all were, most of us.
Mhm.
And I finally finished it, made myself sit down. I talk a lot in my presentations about procrastination. Well, I had also, to back up a little bit, helped with my parents, who were both sick, and they both passed away. So that happened. And then I helped out with my mother-in-law when same situation. But finally, I finished my book. A cousin of mine helped me with how to send it out and the best way to do it and who I ought to try sending to. I had about, I don't know, 20 rejections or so. And
Mhm.
then this publisher took it, and my books became really popular. And even in some of my reviews, um, which I was happily surprised about, they called my Jelly Bean character a role model. And I don't know, I guess that's how a lot of people feel or felt about her.
That's right.
Hmm.
Well, I heard a lot of life was happening
Of
and
course.
then the pandemic, and you found yourself because you were busy learning and growing and becoming. And
Mhm.
then you were busy helping your family. And then
Exactly.
the pandemic happened, and we had to
Mhm.
just stop and think about ourselves, think about our legacy. What do you
Yes.
want to leave behind? And your children reminded you that you had a great thing. You have a great thing in you. You have that greatness in you that you can share with the world, especially at a time where the world was stuck or stopped abruptly. You could now pick up and start working on yourself.
Yes. So exactly true. And that
Hmm.
is what it felt like.
Yeah. So the Adventures of Jelly Bean is really something that's been sitting there for years. And you mentioned procrastination, but a lot of times it's not really. just procrastination, you know? It is life is
Right. So my
happening.
excuses were valid. Exactly. So
Yeah.
true. Yeah, because then I find myself when I was, I guess, 68 or 69,
Yeah.
like you say, finally being able to concentrate on my magnum opus, so to say.
You know,
But you're right, life intervenes, life,
life,
so to say.
yeah. I loved that you had help from, you said a family member or your cousin helped you,
Oh, my cousin's daughter.
your
Yes.
cousin's daughter, she said, let me help you put this out. A lot of people are interested. They come to me. We do self
Mhm,
publishing, but there are a lot of people that are interested in traditional
mhm,
publishing. So I'm so grateful that you're here
mhm.
and you went through that path, and you can give us a little insight
Yes,
on the pros
definitely.
of you going that route to the
Mhm,
traditional publishing route.
mhm. Right. So, interestingly enough that you should say that, because this was all new to me.
Hmm.
Yeah, I had written other things like articles that were published and so forth, but I wanted to get my book published, start thinking about that as a
Yeah.
goal. And what, interestingly enough, like you say, was seated next to, by chance, my cousin's daughter at a family event party.
Hmm.
And she was, this cousin of mine, daughter, Ariel,
Uh-huh.
was working for ICM at the time,
Uh-huh.
the creative agency
Hmm.
out in California, but she was in. And she told me a couple of important things, and I do try to pay it forward when people ask me, because it's a very commonly asked questions when I go to conferences and so forth. And she said, first of all, you have to write a one pager, which means when you're getting something, and I taught writing for a lot of years, so this was certainly not anything new to me,
Right.
but I have to tell people you have to send something about your book to get people interested. That's one page. You can't go, because I remember saying to her, oh, I have like a page and a half or two. She said, no, Amy, you have to cut it down. That's number one. Because
Yes.
if people are reading, well, now on the computer for the most part, they're not going to read through a whole pile of things that are several pages long if you're a brand new author. Yeah, if you've
Yeah.
achieved fame, it's another story. But just to get started, and you have to start, or not have to, but it's a good idea to start with an exclamation or a question, that
Mhm.
type of thing, to
Yeah.
get your reader right in there.
Yeah.
And if you study, if you can buy tons of books and online about how different people wrote their one pagers,
Right.
and you see different examples, which are kind of good to emulate. There's that. And
Yeah.
then if you're figuring out who to send it to, mine's a hybrid publisher, meaning
Yeah.
you have to pay part and they pay part for the
Yeah.
publishing. You have to only send, you can look through in Writer's Market and various books such as that.
Mhm.
Only send it to, look carefully where you're sending it. You have to send it to publishers that are interested in new book, brand new authors, new book. Don't send it
Mm.
to,
Wasting your
the same.
time. Do your homework. Yes.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. And pick your top three, and then you have to notice how they tell you to submit. So for me, it was mostly you have to write an outline, which is always such a hard thing for me. And but once your outline is written, send that, and it's usually your first 25 pages. Some is your first 10 pages, so they can see your writing style and what you're all about.
Yeah.
Or your first three chapters. I remember that
Yes.
was a common request. So
Mhm.
those are my top suggestions for helping somebody.
Thank you so much for that, because I get that question all the time. A
Of
lot of
course,
people come,
naturally
they want to
enough.
know, yeah, how
Yes.
do you get to a traditional publisher? So,
Yeah.
l love having that information, guys. Write it down. You hear it first from
Yeah.
Miss Amy Pollack herself. So, Amy, tell me about a little bit more about your books, The Adventures of Jelly Bean and the further adventures of Jelly Bean. Now, you delve into the challenges of the fourth grader and what inspired that little Jelly Bean. What inspired her character? How did you decide that this character you're creating was going to be um, exactly how she is? Let's talk about a little bit.
Oh,
Yeah.
so she kind of evolved. My
Mhm.
characters tell me what they want me to do. I mean, I'm not very good at certain other things, cooking or baking or knitting or sewing, or I can't illustrate. My publisher does that, which I think their illustrations are really good.
Right.
But the writing part I can do reasonably well. So she started out as this little mischievous girl based on, people will say, is Jelly Bean me? Yes and no, a little bit here and there, because I would lead my sister into some mischievous things when we were younger. So she's a little bit based on me,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit based on my daughter, because she's the youngest in the family and she has two older brothers. And Jelly Bean starts out by being feeling excluded a lot, because when we would have dinner together, my
Mm-hmm.
boys were rambunctious and loud and full of fun, but my daughter would often feel left out, because she'd be saying something and they would butt in, or they'd be talking together or sharing a joke or something. So that's her background, Jelly Beans, and
Mm.
who she was based after in a nutshell. And another cousin of my husband's, who was the youngest of four and has three older brothers. And I guess I was kind of intrigued by that, because I'm
Mhm.
the oldest, but I was kind of felt a little bad for the underdog, so to say.
Yeah.
But, but as she evolved, Jelly Bean, and made it through these life challenges, as you were saying, and these are fairly typical situations, they're pretty real, and but she tackles them in her own way. So for example, there's popularity, which is so hard for girls and boys, but
Mhm.
um what do you do, which is, I think, a very real situation for across the board. I'm going to say basically everybody, and who she wants to be friends with, and what's important for her to follow and what just isn't, which is a tough thing when, quote unquote, everybody's doing something. She learns to make her own decisions in that regard. And her little, without giving too much away, but her best friend, and this happens a lot, this little girl who she loves, and she's the most loyal, wonderful, um, worthy girl, the parents don't approve of. And
Oh.
I know, and that happens a lot for
Mm.
various reasons. Some are valid, some aren't. So this little girl, the parents don't like her, what's going on in her household. Now it's hard to explain that to a
Right.
kid. So she's
Right.
constantly asking them, "Why can't I go over there?" And the little girl says to her, again, without spoiling too much, "Well, nobody can, so I'm used to it." Oh my God. I know,
Oh.
which makes her, and these things all occur.
Oh, yeah.
So there's the point when Jelly Bean said, because you're trying to figure things out at that age, says
Yeah.
to her parents, "You just don't like her because she's poor."
Oh.
Now, I can't make the mom sound be evil, because she's not an evil person. But
Right.
how does a kid process that? Her mom, the little girl, the mom's not home a lot. Her mother has different needs and a different situation. So you can see more about that and how she handles it, because I will just tell you, because I would ask well, I learned a lot from my students, but I learned a lot from, well, now my grandchildren, but from my own children. And I had said to my daughter, I should have figured this one out. What would you do if I didn't allow you to go to someone's house? 2 seconds. Oh, I'd sneak. Was my answer. And you know what? I'm thinking, was I any different? To be brutally honest.
Right.
So I
Right.
have a lot of stuff between, not stuff, terrible
Yeah.
word, but things that go on between the generations. And
Yeah.
the mom, the grandmother, I'm sorry, who I just love and relate to, smooths a lot of things out between
Mm-hmm.
her daughter and Jelly Bean. So there's that. And she has a friend that ends up having a medical issue. Well, actually, the friend, not the little girl who moved away, but another one, and this happens a lot, even in the early grades, turns out to be anorexic. And
Mm.
she has an episode, and Jelly Bean was just about to go on in the gymnastics meet that was
Mm-hmm.
important to her, but she chooses what she wants to do when this happens to the little girl.
To her friend.
Yes. So she ends up,
Wow.
and she has conflicts with, as I just mentioned, with her parents.
Yes.
She has some conflicts with her siblings. She has conflicts with classmates. And if I give you one more example, okay, her oldest brother, which you find this out if you read when you read it, if when
Mm-hmm.
goes off to drop out of high school, which is definitely no parent's top choice
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, and he joins the Marines. And because he just feels like high school is a waste of time for him, you can read about this more in detail in my book. And the parents are very upset about this because they wanted, different things for him in life. And then Jelly Bean feels like a lot of their time and emotions are taken up with him and that situation. And one time in school, this is just an example of how she evolves. The teacher asks her to come up and talk about the brother because he ends up. My book takes place shortly after 9/11, and the
Mm-hmm.
brother went off to be in the Marines in Afghanistan. The
Okay.
teacher wants her to come up and speak about that, which that happens a lot. About a teacher will call you up to talk about various, from having been in so many different classrooms, this occurs a lot. And as she's talking about it, she takes some questions, and one boy blurts out, "Is he going to die?"
Oh,
And all the kids are saying, "Oh my God, that's terrible." Like,
why would you
Jelly
say that? Yeah.
yeah. And Jelly Bean says, "It's what everybody's thinking, but he's just the one that says it."
Oh.
And everyone's quiet because she becomes very, she's very she's her own person, and
Mm-hmm.
she speaks out. And she'll stand up to a bully, which is a good trait. She's not like a goody goody by any stretch of the imagination, but people find her to be like an interesting combination of traits.
She sounds like she matured throughout this, like,
Yes.
through all
Hmm.
of the experiences. It
Yes.
also sounds like the experiences that she is having reflect experiences of children today.
Yes, they
So
are.
they're timeless stories.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. Definitely.
Yeah.
With different twists, such as technology being
Right.
what it is, as compared
Hmm.
to back in the day when I started writing it. Just
You know,
funny.
Jelly Bean, she faces a lot of challenges when I heard, challenges about with the parents, challenges about struggles with the friendship, what's going
Mhm,
on with her brother going away. She
mhm.
faced so many different challenges. Why
Yes.
do you think it's important for children's literature to address these topics?
So it is important for a lot of reasons. And through my own experience, and especially when I taught middle school and high school, I did help a lot of the parents only because I had been through so many of these kind of things. And everyone, no matter, sometimes parents could be belligerent in, why didn't my child, get to do such and such or get a better grade and so forth. Most parents, 95% that I've come across, they just want their child to be successful. My mother
Yeah,
would be annoyed
yeah,
if I said kid, but successful and happy.
yeah,
And it's tough to achieve. So that's why if you are reading my book or a book like that, it can open up avenues to talk about certain things which are important and helpful to
yeah.
children. And it's hard to just bring something up out of the blue. And if you're reading something like this, it can lead to good discussions like, do you know someone that's doing such and such? And what would you do if you were in, like, very hard with the popularity issues and, now there are drugs, obviously, and alcohol, and how to speak to your kids about how not to go along if there's a difficult situation.
Right.
Say you're there in a group or at a party or something, and it's just good to talk about and keep the lines of communication open, because for children, for kids, for boys and girls, however you want to say it, everyone kind of wants to be included. It's just a natural instinct.
Yes.
And by reading my book, say you're reading it with your child, it's mostly for ages 7 to 12-year-olds, mostly grades 3, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, for the most part, unless someone's a very precocious reader and they're younger, or someone still likes it when they're a little bit older. So it's called middle grade for the most part. And they're really just learning about all these kinds of issues.
Yeah. How do you think, because you have been a teacher for many years, and given that you are now a retired teacher from, you taught for decades, how do you think parents and educators can best support children that are having all of these issues, and compounding that the issues that they're having is technology, and how do you balance their time with technology and all of these issues that are coming up in the home that exists in the schools also?
I know, it's so tough. And I do have on my website 15 suggestions
Oh,
for
wow. I
helping.
love that.
Yeah, I tried to give whatever suggestions. I don't really want to say advice, but I guess there's
Suggestions.
yeah,
Safe suggestions.
okay, right. I guess, you
What's
do.
the website?
Okay, it's amypollack.com. And I have a lot of information about me, my writing, and my books. And I think the best you can do, and to advise parents, because I remember once, for example, a while back, I had one mom who said, I just hide in the dark when my children get home because they're so difficult and it's so emotional that I just can't handle it. And you know what? I came to really understand that over the years, because what if you do, not you, but what if one does need support for helping out with your child's situation and what they're up to, or if you suspect something really wrong going on? You do need to know when to go for help, make your best judgment on it. And I know it's so hard for working parents and for people that can't be around that much if you're a caregiver. And you just have to do your best and make sure you're around when possible.
Yeah.
When you can, and try to listen to them and see what's going on inside their heads. And I know my daughter would say these various situations like, oh, so and so got home, a friend back in the day, because she's going on 39 now, in the middle of her mother trying to kill herself. Oh my God. I mean, it's horrible.
Devastating.
Oh my God. You'd be traumatized for life. And once, actually, when I taught college, I was at Montclair State, and I went around the room, and each student had to talk about the conflict that they were going to be. They had to write about a family conflict. Oh my God. By the end of those, I was in tears. One worse than the next. One was kicked out of their home. One was, a whole variety of unfortunate kinds of things. And I guess I could just say, if you can keep the lines of communication open, if you can go for help when you yourself need the help as a parent, and just try to stay in the loop with your kid and just learn how to listen, which is really hard. Because I know, like, I had wonderful, terrific parents. I was so blessed.
Yeah.
But what would my mom do if she was mad at me about something? And I totally get it. Start yelling, and you're so irresponsible, and how could you do this, and blah, blah, blah. it's not that effective. But things were very different then. Like,
Yeah.
for example, well, pre all this technology, which does compound a lot of the issues. No ifs, ands, or buts. But
Mm-hmm.
even when I say to my grandchildren, "Oh, we had to have liver once a week," and they'd be like, "What?" And I said that was the thinking then, in when I was growing up in the late 50s, early 60s. I didn't like it, but you had to,
Right.
and things were different. Like, we played outside more on the street, and now you
Mm-hmm.
see a lot more kids that are on their tablets all the time,
Yeah, and it's,
including my
they're
grandchildren.
hooked on those
Totally.
devices. It's not just that they're playing these devices. You try to take it away from them so they can sit down to dinner,
I know.
and it's like World War III. Like, what are you doing? You can't
I
take my
know.
device. I need to have it. Well,
I know.
they get really upset,
Yes.
and that's a sign that they have an addiction to this device.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned, oh my god, so many great things while you were talking. I'm listening, and one of the things I wanted to address is how you were going around the room and just listening to the stories of the students and hearing one after the other being, so traumatic or so
Mm,
heart-wrenching. And one of the ways that I believe that adults and educators can get you know get to know their students a little bit is just to ask, do one of those exercises that you did.
mhm.
It's, I mean, you didn't do it as an exercise, you did it because this was, an assignment that they had to
Yes.
do. But there's
Mhm.
an exercise that I've found that is very helpful in helping people, not just young people, but
Mhm.
people, you just unearth some of the things that they're going through. And it's that exercise that say, if you knew me, you would know this. And then you tell something that you are hiding
Oh,
inside. Yes.
that's a really good idea.
So,
No, I do like that.
yeah, if you're listening and you're an educator or an adult in a home with children, there's an exercise that you can use to just get to unearth some of the things that young people are going through. And so you can listen, because by listening, you can hear the pain that they're going through. And sometimes they don't even need suggestions, they just need to express that pain.
Exactly. I would say most people, and especially kids, need to be listened to. And
Yeah.
it's interesting you should say that because, and I got this idea from another teacher, which you have to be kind of brave, but I would ask for evaluations of myself at the end of a week or the day. I forget. I varied it depending on the group and what else I had to be teaching. And a sixth grader had put this down, which helped me so much. You know how sometimes just one line can help you?
Mm-hmm.
And so, to get at some of their issues and so forth, I agree. You do have to just be a good listener. And what this one girl had put, I got a lot of praise and a lot, but you don't really learn from that. Like, you're always like, oh, wow, this is great, which I was happy,
Of course.
So for the most part, oh, it's my favorite class and so forth. This one girl wrote, because I told them they didn't have to put their names, so I could generally read their handwriting. Mrs. Pollack goes on and on and on. And I thought, oh my God, I do. That's terrible. And I started involving the students more
Uh-huh.
in their responses and, like you said, just what they had to say. And I valued that comment. I wonder whatever happened to that little girl, because it was so honest and so helpful to me. So now when I do, and the teachers always love it, that listen to it, when I give presentations, and I could go to your area, but I do go to a lot of the schools around and talk in their library time.
Mm-hmm.
And I involve them. I read something. I talk about myself a little bit. I make them write. I read a little bit from my books, make them write their prediction, ask them to write their predictions and suggestions. We share them all, and then we talk a little bit
Mm-hmm.
about my books, and then it'll come out what some of them are going through. That's just one way, but I do
Yeah.
involve them and try to listen. That's so key.
Beautiful. And what a wonderful student that was, to
Yes,
express herself.
I was happy.
Yeah, you gave her the safe space to express herself because you said,
Mhm.
you know what, let's make this anonymous. And she was able to express herself. Hopefully, she remained that expressive,
Yeah, you're right. Yes.
you
Yes.
know?
Because
Some,
sometimes it's easier to just scribble down, "Oh, you're great," you know?
yes.
And she was helpful. At the
Yeah.
time, I was like, "Oh, oh dear."
What am I doing?
Yeah, right. But it makes you wanna change
Yeah.
it up a little, so that's good.
Yeah, I love it. I think that sharing time with young people
Mhm.
is one of the best things that you can do, because if you are a positive person, I
Mhm.
believe that we should really take the time to speak over these young people and give them the opportunity to see the greatness that they will develop in themselves and see the
Right.
greatness that they already have, you
Mhm.
know?
Yes,
Yeah. Um,
exactly.
teachers are some of my favorite people. I mean, I've had some great teachers. I've
Mhm.
had Mrs. I talk about my third grade teacher all the
Mm,
time because she
really?
inspired the writing in me. Yeah, the writer in me. Yeah.
Wow.
And she made me feel like I my writing was exceptional. It was beautiful.
Uh,
We have a newspaper where I'm from in Jamaica, West Indies, where that newspaper was dedicated to students. And
oh,
I believe it came out once a week.
mhm.
And she used to send our write-in to the newspaper, and they'll choose which story they're
Oh.
going to publish.
Uh-huh.
And so they published a few of my stories because she kept telling me that, yes, these stories are amazing and they're great, and all the children need to read these stories. So,
Wow.
and look at me today. I'm an author and a publisher because,
Oh,
partly because that woman
inspired you.
inspired me and made me feel like I was good. And I'm
Mhm.
sure those stories probably weren't, really good, but she made me
Well,
feel like they were very good.
we always need someone to encourage us. That is so true. I
Yeah.
was lucky because my dad always did. Like, he always read to me,
Uh-huh.
starting with the youngest age, the Bible, started with Greek mythology.
Oh, wow.
Then he read me all of Dickens. And at the time, like you're saying, you had someone so valuable to encourage you.
Yeah.
I think I kind of took it for granted till I saw what other children had or didn't have.
Yeah.
And then you're like, wow, this was so wonderful.
Invaluable. Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
Wow.
totally. Like, I took
Mhm.
my 11th grade one year, and this was because I did special ed.
Mhm.
Believe me, it was a challenge. I loved those kids, but oh Lord, they were a motley crew, let's just say. So the other teachers thought I was crazy. I took them on a trip until you got all the, logistics worked out. And we went to New York. I had a bus. I made my sister go with me, but we went to my husband's office. And these kids, I was so, kind of had my heart in my mouth, and his law firm was a large firm, and there was like a whole underground city of the support staff, and
Mm.
these were jobs that these students could do, and they would get benefits, which was like would have been wonderful for them. They were in 11th grade, so they
Yeah.
were ready. They were not college bound, and they saw like the security job, they saw the audio visual, they saw the editing. I'm not so sure some of them could do, but the various help. Well, it's funny. Then it was the Xerox job, but I'm obviously it changed, somewhat. And they all said they just had the best day learning about these things that they could do if they were to make up their minds to show up on time, to always have a smile, to work their hardest,
Yeah.
to be pleasant, to learn these particular skills. And they had a pep talk from my husband's secretary who was with him a long time, and she was very encouraging. Like,
Mm-hmm.
take a close look at this and you can contact me if you want more information. And so I was happy that they were encouraged to do different things that they would be capable of.
Yeah. It's speaking of 11th grade, that is another year where you're so impressionable
Oh,
and so scared of going out into the world because, you know, you're so close to going on to college.
I
And what
know.
if you don't know what you want to do? That is really a time to have a mentor or a teacher start to focus in and giving you other options. So that's a great year.
You're so right. Exactly. Because they would say things to me like heartbreaking things about their well, one lived in a shelter with some of the parents were on drugs and various not very great situations.
Hmm.
But, you had to give them all those tests that they need to take. It was the HESPAs back in New
Yeah.
Jersey. I know New York has something comparable. Um, I know it from, some of my grandchildren and so forth. But,
Hmm.
and they would say things like, what if I fail? What if I have trouble with the test or can't do it? And I would always say to them, it's a big world out there. You will find something. I can't tell you exactly how or exactly what, but you will make it. You just have
That's
to
right.
make up your mind to pursue what you're going to go and what you're capable of and what interests you.
Yes. What are you capable of?
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You'll find something. Just, we underlook the importance of, I don't know if that's a word, but we don't look at how important it really is to make a decision and just stick to it.
So
You know.
hard.
Yeah.
Very hard.
Just make a
But
decision. If it doesn't work out, then make another decision.
life is trial and error. I always say that
Yes.
to my own kids.
Yes.
And my dad would always say, and then, you see later in life that all these things that, let's say, my parents or a mentor said to you, he'd say, you have to make these decisions so early in life. And what do you really know? Your choice of career and your choice of a mate, let's say, you're so young,
Yeah.
but you just have to do your best and we all kind of muddle through.
One step at a time,
No.
one
Yeah.
decision at a time.
You
And
just need
then
the encouragement.
you need the encouragement. And we need teachers. I'm
Mhm,
going to press these teachers because they spend a lot of time with our children and grandchildren. And
mhm,
so I really think it's important for us to celebrate teachers because they are doing oh my goodness, most teachers are doing an amazing job. They spend
I
a lot of
know.
time with our children and they have a lot of responsibility, but they
I know.
also have a lot of influence on our children. So be
They do.
encouraging, be nice. I had an English teacher when I was in 11th grade, Mr.
Uh-huh.
Lanzetta. And oh my goodness, he was amazing. He saved me from chaos because
It's so lucky.
yeah, he was a great teacher. He saw something special in me also and encouraged me. And even though I was feeling like crap because I was a teenage mother, I had a baby when I was in high school.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I was, sometimes I really felt ashamed that,
Oh.
this was my story.
Mhm.
But Mr. Lanzetta, he saw something special in me. He thought I was a great author. He thought you were
Mhm.
just a great writer. And he encouraged me to write more and to read my
Oh,
stories to the class and, just encouraged me. And, naturally, you know, when you have someone encouraging you, you just want to do your best.
I
So
know.
it's really, I think the teachers are doing a great job. And I hope that, they continue to be more of a mentor and inspiration to young people. Find the time to speak positively to them and don't put your fears on them thinking that they can't
Mhm.
become something because of the limitations that you know.
No, you're so right. It's so important to be in there to do whatever you can to
Yeah.
encourage them. And like you say, they all go through various situations. Like you were a teenage mom.
Mhm.
Someone, which is so interesting because I've known so many people that can't have children
Mhm.
or wait too long. So I guess, everyone has or it's so common to have some issue or other along those lines.
Yeah.
And, whatever it is that you're going through, I mean, I have one friend, she lost both her parents when she was young, and her siblings weren't particularly helpful to her. And she still managed to do well in school. And, she was just alone a lot. I had a student, I'd never heard of this before, but maybe you have, who was an emancipated minor.
Oh, that was me.
Really? Both your
Well, I
parents
had no
signed off?
parents. Yeah, my parents were deceased at the time, so yes, I was
Oh,
emancipated
wow.
minor. Yes, honey,
Uh,
it's common.
well, these
And
parents were alive, but they had signed off on him and they just left,
uh-huh.
and he was alone. And it
Yeah,
was horrible.
it happens because you can't pick your parents. You just have to
No.
play the cards you get. And
Yeah.
if you can, there are benefits. Of course, it's sad that you have to be on your own because
Mhm.
life is so hard and so
And tough.
stressful. When
Yes.
you're a teenager, you're still trying to find yourself, and to not have the support and the counsel and the guide, that
Oh,
sucks.
that's tough. Yes.
But there are a lot of great benefits from finding out, okay, I am an emancipated minor. It is what it
Hmm.
is. Get the
Hmm.
support. The government has a lot of things in place to support you. So start by going to the library if you don't know where else to turn, and ask for help and get the
Hmm.
support that you need, because that was me. That was my life. But here
Wow.
I am, a successful person today. I'm a doctor of nursing practice. And I'm not saying that to
Yeah.
brag or anything. I'm just saying, if I
Okay.
can do it from the way my life started out, you can do it too out there. You can do
Yeah.
it too. Yes.
But it's good to be a role model like you are because, maybe students or young people won't take the exact same path. But
Right.
like you're saying, at least you're showing them that these things are possible. You just
Yeah.
have to work hard. Like once I said to one of the young boys in my ninth grade, who just wore the exact same clothes every single day, and he had a very tough family situation. And once I said, "Oh, do you like?" Oh my God, did this open up a can of worms? But I was, a pretty good listener to him, and we'd talk. And I said, once I said, "Do you like your mother's boyfriend?" Oh my
Hmm.
God. Well, if you like being beaten up every day,
Oh,
and I was
wow.
like, "Oh, that's horrible." And so I had the chance one time to take two students to it was nice at a hotel nearby. If you've heard of Parsippany, that's where I was teaching high school.
Hmm.
Anyway, they had a lunch and learn program, and I
Hmm.
was allowed to pick two special ed kids, and I chose him for one. And he'd never been in a nice hotel, and we had lunch and listened to a speaker that was, pretty valuable, and he just had a great day. And like for example, once he was so grateful that I gave him a pencil. I mean, a pencil, and he
Wow.
was like, "Oh, thank you," and that became like his favorite possession.
The things
But
we take for granted. Yeah.
yeah, but just doing things like that can open them up to new possibilities.
Yeah. You sound like an amazing teacher in that
Mhm.
you
Thank you.
gave, such great opportunities to the students, and
Yes. Did what
that
I
is
could.
what we need. Thank you so much. Looking
Oh.
ahead, what do you hope the future holds for Jelly Bean and her adventures and for
Mm.
you?
So I am working on my book 4, and I will say I'm in the middle, trying to figure out what comes next. There
Mm-hmm.
is a transgender student in her class. So there's that. That's new and different going on. And
Ooh.
how, yeah, I know. My daughter goes, "Mom, you're so woke." I'm like, you know what? I mean, she was being a little sarcastic, but I did have, but she said it, most serious things are said in jest. So I
Yes.
was happy about that. So that's something to look for. But aside from that, she grows up. She does get a little bit older now. She's in 5th grade, and these
Mm-hmm.
various situations come up with friends, and she, based on things I hear from people, like once my husband, if you can even believe this, gave him and a friend chemicals, which, oh my God, like you'd never do. I guess it was a science teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And so they managed to, I mean, could have burned the house down and killed themselves, but they mixed some things together. This is in there too, and wrecked part of the enamel on the
Mm-hmm.
friend's mother's washing machine. So there's that kind of thing. So she's a mix. Like she has some crazy adventures, but she also grows and sticks up for bullies. And then there's that situation, for example, with the kid who I'm not sure if he's actually going to do it, but he does want to transgender. So we'll see what
Mm-hmm.
happens with that. I'm not sure. And what happens with all her brothers. And oh, I always get asked, are you going to have new characters in there? Probably,
Mm.
because that's life.
Times, yeah, we have to, it's a time that we live in. We have to, incorporate characters that represent today. So I
And
think,
change when it's necessary, which is hard.
yeah,
Change is very hard for a lot of people.
I'm
Part of
looking
life.
forward to seeing what Jelly Bean gets into, all the issues she's faced with.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that should
Thank
be
you
interesting.
so much for coming and for sharing your story and about how you became this amazing author and
Well,
writing
Denise,
these
thank you.
stories. It's been such a pleasure to speak to you. Teachers
Thank
are one
you.
of my favorites, so you are also
Hmm.
one of my fave.
Oh, thank you so much, Denise.
There are just three questions I love to ask
Okay.
all of my guests when they get here. And that's because I want to know a little bit more about what are you up to for the future? So
Uh-huh.
one of them is, what's one bold promise that you can share with the audience?
So funny you should say that because when I get asked that type of question, I always say that I tell kids, it took me a while to learn this, be bold.
Ooh,
I
yes.
do honestly, not
Mhm.
having, I know when I read your thing, the blurbs last night, I was like, golly. And what happened to me when I followed my own advice, it took me a while to learn this. I knew I could be a college professor of English, and I went, but I didn't have a PhD. I
Mhm.
never got that, but I had so much experience and knowledge and just wanting to do a good job in that. And I came to speak to the supervisor of the English department at Montclair State.
Mhm.
And she said, no, she started out, you're not what we're looking for. You have the wrong type of background and you're mostly special ed, and which, believe me, came in plenty handy. And I said to her, I don't think I could have done this before, let's say, age 50. But I
Mhm.
said to her, and I really meant it, I said, I can be whatever you want me to be.
Yes.
And I think she took me, oh, on a trial basis. And, okay. I became her favorite teacher. And I really recommend that to the kids. Be bold. You have
People.
to
Yes. I love that story.
push yourself.
Yes, because someone was closing the door on you and you're like, "Listen, I really could be anything, okay? And I could be anything you're looking for and
Yeah,
more than that."
right. I mean, like I know I could never be an astronaut, for example, but if you put your mind to something that you know you can or have a pretty decent chance of achieving, you have to
Mhm.
go for it. Like you
Yeah,
have to.
yeah. If you decided you wanted to be an astronaut, I'm sure you could.
I don't know. I don't know, Denise. That might be a little out of my wheelhouse.
What is a bold statement that you can share with the audience that will cause a paradigm shift?
Hmm. Okay, I would say, and this reminds me because I'll tell it in a vignette. When my big son, was working for a certain judge that
Mm,
everybody was in awe of and kind of scared. He was famous in New York, this Judge
mhm.
Duffy, and
Ah.
you heard of him anyway. He was well known in those fields. And I said to my son, get in his way, ask him about himself. And he'd be, oh my God, I can't do that. I said, yeah, you can. Because my dad would always say, well, you certainly know this from from your achievements. My dad would always say, people's favorite subject is themselves. I
Mm.
said, ask him about himself. I bet no one does. They're all so in awe of him. So I would say that to, if you want to achieve in a certain field. And you know what? He did it. I said, make yourself. And he said, so, and then because he said to me maybe like a couple days later, a week after, you know how he started out? And I'm like, How? And he had a whole interesting story.
He
Because
was
I
able
said,
to share his story. Everybody want to be listened to.
right. And I said, I bet you'll be memorable to him. So I
Mhm.
do tell that to students and anyone else who asks for advice. Get in their way of someone that
Yes.
you want to help you with your success.
Write that down, guys.
I know.
Yes. Get in their way. Now,
Right.
what's a bold move that you'd like to make in the future, Amy?
Oh, gosh. I guess I would have to say continue my series and figure out what Jelly Bean is going to be up to
Mm.
and how she's going to achieve success in her life and with her projects, let's say, and with things that she wants to do and likes to do. Like
Yeah.
you learn so much from your children and from your students, from one's children and one's, the child's the father of the man. And my one of my granddaughters, and I'm close with all of them, but we, share a lot. She's going on 9. And she said to me, guess how many girls are on my swim team? And I don't know, 15, 14. Nope, lower, lower, lower. The only girl on our swim team with all boys. And I was like, wow, that's wonderful. Good for you. I said, do you mind it? And she's like, well, sometimes, but I really like it. So,
Wow.
yeah. So I would say I just like to hopefully continue to be a good listener and to have relationships with them and to be a fun grandma and to help my kids as much as possible with their child rearing, you know.
I feel like the world is blessed to have you as an
Mm,
author sharing your
yeah.
message throughout the globe. And I can't wait for you to put out the next adventure of Jelly Bean because I'm going to be sharing it with my grandchildren. There's a tradition that I have with them, and that's, when they come over, I like to read something to them. I'm going to pay attention more to what I'm to because I like to read Anansi stories and stories that I grew up with. But I
Mhm.
think I'm going to be sharing some Jelly Bean
Oh,
stories.
thank you. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, you can go on amypollack.com and see
Yeah.
all about my presentations and my books and reviews and so forth. But thank you. I hope they enjoy them.
I'm sure they will. And
Mm.
thank you for your contribution to the world and for your positive message and for your intricate stories that, will help students and not just students, it will help adults too, because just reading and seeing some of the things that they're talking about, this is a great topic for anyone. So thank you, thank you, thank
Mm.
you. And so
Pleasure.
where can we find your books again? What's the name of your website?
Okay, so it's amypollack.com, and I have so far. And my third book, hopefully, is coming out soon. The publisher has it.
Look at the
Adventurous.
illustrations. Really, really great.
Yes, they did great illustrations. So the best way, of course, is Amazon. They're the quickest. Um, and they tend to eclipse all the others, and publishers a little slow. But also, they're in Barnes and Nobles and other bookstores. If you ever heard of Indigo, it's there. That's in
Mhm.
New Jersey. And yeah, and it should be coming out with any luck in the very near future. My book 3.
Excellent. I'm going to share with you. I'll send you an email. I
Uh-huh.
also have a bookstore, and I'd love to put your book in my bookstore. It's called
Great.
Bold. Yeah, Bold Bookstore. So I'll share with you how you can put your books in there. I'll send you an email.
Great.
Thank you so much again for coming. I really
Pleasure.
appreciate you. And for the listeners, if you're interested in writing your book and sharing your message with the world, please send me an email at
Mhm.
authordnicholson@gmail.com and write your book and share it with the world. Thank
Mm,
you again, Amy.
pleasure.
Bye
Thank you,
bye.
Denise. Take care.
Bye bye.
Thank you for joining us for the Bold Book of the Day with Dr. Denise Nicholson, a central hub and a safe space for authors to share their stories. Follow Dr. Denise on Facebook and Instagram at Denise Nicholson or go to denisenicholson.com. Remember, no one can share your story better than you.